Dr. McHugh, thank you so much for being with us today. Tell us, how did you become familiar with this case against Dr. George Tiller here in Kansas?
Well, I became familiar with it because I was called by Attorney General Klein and asked if I would look at the records and to see whether I could confirm or reject the idea that those records demonstrated that the women involved in the abortions were in danger of suffering a substantial and irreversible impairment if the pregnancies continued, impairment of a psychiatric kind. Since I'm a psychiatrist, he asked me to look at it from that point of view. The point was not to identify them as a particular person, but to identify the state of mind that they were in and the examinations that were performed and the adequacy of those studies to reach the conclusions that the doctors had reached. Some of them would be construed as trivial, and others would be construed as serious. A trivial one would be not being able to go to a rock concert. A more serious one would be to say, I'm going to be worried about the life of this child later on in life. But notice, I could pick out only bits and pieces of this. This is not none of them represented a full psychiatric history. Certainly, being able to go to a sporting event, being able to go to the prom, go to a concert, there's a life at stake here, and much more serious issues need to be brought up, particularly if you want to obey the Kansas law that says some serious impairment is required. The people in Kansas ought to know more about what psychiatry is about if psychiatric diagnoses are being employed to justify this way of getting and satisfying the laws that they've written. He had mostly social reasons for thinking that the late-term abortions were suitable, that the children wouldn't, that the offspring would not thrive, that the woman would have her future redirected, that they wouldn't get a good education after they had a child, that they would be always guilty in some way about having this child, that they had been abused already, and that this to have the baby would not be another form of abuse. Again, these ideas that he was expressing, these again are not psychiatric ideas. These are social ideas that he is proposing. And by the way, again, there was nothing to back these things up. There was no plans being made for these young women, whether they were going to be aborted or not, to be seen and followed up and given counsel and support and kindness and doctoring to help them readjust. Being pregnant and then being a mother of a child up to about age 1 actually reduces the suicide risk of women by 3 to 8-fold. Not many people know that, even though it's substantiated in the medical literature. It's nature's, we'd probably have to accept the idea that nature does protect us, Pregnancy is a burden for everyone, and yet something out of nature alters the attitude of these women, even when they're distressed about the meaning of their life and the meaning that this life they carry has for them. I would describe it as brief, symptom-only based, and unsubstantiated in its prognosis on the basis of a rich, detailed study of the young woman and her potentials. Okay? If you're going to take a life on the basis of a psychiatric examination, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of most psychiatrists would be, this requires a serious understanding of the full biography of the person, as well as the place that they are at the moment, the context in which this has happened, and what are the resources, which are quite, after all, in our country, the resources for psychiatric services and psychological services are rich. And well, one wonders, looking at this, why some consideration isn't being made to employ them for the benefit of these patients. I'm quite confident that 100% of psychiatrists would say that those are not irreversible conditions, since most of their practice is taking care of exactly those things and restoring people to their mental health. We do that all the time. I had to ask myself, looking at these records, is any person who comes to this clinic ever found not to be appropriate on psychological or psychiatric grounds for abortion?
And did you see anyone file that justified a late-term abortion by demonstrating that she would suffer substantial and irreversible harm?
I saw no file that justified abortion on that basis.